Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for this Netwealth Practice Management webinar. Our series designed to help wealth professionals discover new opportunities to enhance their business. My name is Liam and I'm part of the marketing team here at Netwealth. And there's been a lot of talk and speculation regarding artificial intelligence over the past couple of years. And depending on what you read and who you speak to, AI is either going to cause the sky to collapse and end financial advice as we know it, or it's going to open a whole new world of opportunity for financial advisors. To help make sense of it all and explain how AI is really going to impact your business, I'm delighted to have Joel Robbie, founder and CEO of Nod, join us today to share his insights. Before I hand over the mic though, I'll just need to run through some quick housekeeping items. There is one CPD point allocated for attending this webinar. To receive this CPD point, you will need to have watched at least 30 minutes of this webinar today in this live session. These CPD details will then be emailed to you within the next week. This webinar is being recorded and you will receive a copy of this session along with the slides in the same email as the CPD. And if there is anything you would like to ask Joel today, you'll notice on the taskbar to your right that there's a questions panel. So please feel free to enter any questions you have in there and we will endeavor to ask as many at the end of the session. And if you're on social media and would like to share anything about today's presentation, please include either #invest or @NetwealthInvest. A quick bit about us. Nearing our 20th year, Netwealth is an ASX-listed company who provide an online platform to support financial advisors with a wide range of financial products and services to help manage their clients' investments and superannuation. So partner with us, an award-winning platform, to start running your business the way you want to. Some of our key features include a market-leading advisor and client portal, a mobile app to help you and your clients access key info on the go, a wide range of investment options such as managed accounts and advanced transaction tools, a suite of detailed reports that can be tailored to you and your clients' business needs, and access to unique insights designed to help you grow your business. As mentioned, I'm delighted to have Joel Robbie joining us today. He is the founder and CEO of Nod, an automated document generation platform taking the time out of SOA production. Joel is also an authority on how to use data to drive decision making and ready a team for change. And today he will be sharing his insights on artificial intelligence and how it will affect financial advice. So Joel, please take it away.
Thanks, Liam. Really good to be here, everyone. Really exciting to be spending this time with you this afternoon, as it now is. And I'll be taking you through the likely impacts of artificial intelligence on your business. So I've put in here in the title how it will really impact your business, because let's face it, artificial intelligence is one of those really buzzy terms that's been kicking around multiple industries now for a while. It means different things to different people. It's hard to pin down a genuine definition for it. If you're not a technologist or you're not from the technology world, it's hard to work out how it's going to impact your business. And so what I'm hoping we'll get out of today is I'll be able to hopefully dispel a couple of myths, provide you with a better understanding of what artificial intelligence actually is, and hopefully give you a more practical understanding of how it might truly impact you and your business going forward. So that's what I'm going to be covering today. If you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to post them. More than happy to answer them as we go along and make it quite interactive. So let's kick off. A bit about me. I've had to change this slide a little bit in the last 3 months. I have recently become a parent. I've had to change the order of this. So I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I am the founder of Nod. Nod, as Liam mentioned really briefly early on, is a document automation platform that decreases SOA generation time by up to 75%. And our team has used a range of artificial intelligence technologies over the past few years as we've been developing our products. We've used, we've had a number of data scientists working in the team, and we've seen both the wonderful parts of artificial intelligence and how it can impact things, but also we've seen pitfalls and we've seen some of the challenges with getting it out there. So I've had a bit of a front row seat, I suppose, to artificial intelligence in financial planning, and I'd love to share some of those insights with you today. So what is it? What is artificial intelligence? I think the first point I would make about artificial intelligence in terms of defining it is highlighting the fact that artificial intelligence is not actually a singular technology. This is a mistake that a lot of people make, where they think that artificial intelligence is one thing. It's actually not. It's actually a universe of technologies, as I'm about to take you through. So artificial intelligence is computer programs with the ability to learn and reason like humans. And they have a unique set of properties. So as you can see from the graphic here, there are two types of learning models. One is machine learning, which is computer algorithms that get developed without being explicitly programmed. So they learn what to do, what to predict, what action to take based on the data that they see, and they get trained over time. So as they get more data, they respond differently, they do different things. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. It's where multiple algorithms get kind of layered together and form a network, and that network evolves, adapts, and changes and responds differently based on big data sets and seeing big data sets. So machine learning is an algorithm that's not explicitly programmed. Deep learning is lots of algorithms layered together to output a particular result based on training on a large data set. So AI is not one technology, it is a universe of technologies. And we're going to delve into that a little bit more here. So this is your universe of AI technologies. And what I'm going to do with this slide is I'm going to spend a little bit of time on each of them. I'm actually going to talk to you about how I think each of them might impact financial planning specifically, so you can get a bit of a sense of that. There is some commonality in terms of these technologies, in terms of the underlying data science that allows them to happen, but they are very different in terms of their application. I also wanted to really highlight that getting an artificial intelligence application out to market is 10% technology, 90% user adoption, and so please let's take each of these technologies with that in mind, that it's not just about the underlying technology. We actually have to build a reasonable, usable digital interface for people to actually work with as well. So let's dive into number one, machine learning. We've already discussed a little bit about it, but in terms of its application in financial planning, I thought I would go through a little bit here with you in terms of how it might be impacted there. So in financial planning, you might have, it might produce very simple forms of advice. So it might get, trained on a large data set of all the advice that's been given in the past for a particular company, and the company might come up with a machine learning algorithm that predicts the advice that should be given to a particular client given a particular scenario. So it might be used in that way for strategy development. Natural language processing is about teaching a computer to understand natural human language. It's got applications in document automation, it's got applications in regulatory compliance, and I'm sure you've seen some applications in the market out there using this particular technology already, and it's got application in digital assistants and chatbots as well. Expert systems are a very rudimentary form of artificial intelligence. They tend to be very rule-based algorithms, which codify the expert knowledge of a particular person into computer algorithms for completing a particular task. And expert systems could be used in document automation as well. They could be used in document compliance, advice strategy formulation, and portfolio administration. Computer vision is a bit of a different one. So computer vision is about teaching a computer to recognize and respond to visual cues and objects. And the most obvious example hopefully some of you can relate to around computer vision is self-driving cars. So self-driving cars basically are, they have a number of sensors around the car, picking up visual information from the street around the car, and sending that data back to a central processing unit, which basically steers the car automatically. I was racking my brains trying to think about what's the application of computer vision in financial planning. The one that I came up with, and I'm happy to hear ideas on this too if people have got it. The one that I came up with was that we're all starting to use web-based meetings, so webinars and video conferencing-based meetings with our clients. And I'm just wondering whether one of those video conferencing software platforms, like Zoom or GoToMeeting or one of those, might just come up with an artificial intelligence computer vision system, which actually helps you as the advisor to empathize with the client on the other end of the webinar by saying, this person's body language shifted to negative when you started to talk about their mortgage, and actually prompt you to maybe ask some deeper questions about that particular topic. And therefore, hopefully, you'll delve deeper, you'll give better advice as a result. So that was one potential application that I came up with around computer vision. It's a little bit creepy, so I'm not sure if it would ever get adopted, which again is the kind of number one thing here, but that would be a potential application of that technology. Let's dive down to speech. So speech is a bit of a variant of the natural language processing stream of artificial intelligence, where you're converting either speech to text or text back into speech. And essentially what you're doing there is you're taking an audio file and you're converting that audio file into a text file, to keep it really simple. There are some obvious applications for this. For those of you that are sick of doing file notes, I feel like that would be a really obvious application for this, where you've got your mobile phone with a recording application out in your client meeting, and off the back of that meeting, there'd be an application that automatically records file notes in a particular file note format, as well as potentially some of the client fact find. Great in theory, but still quite difficult in practice, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Number 6, planning, I'm going to just kind of skip over. It kind of relates to the planning and preparation of an artificial intelligence project. We're talking about, ethics and AI, all that sort of stuff. So I might skip that one for this particular graphic. Not much value for today. Robotics is a really interesting one, and you might be sitting there thinking, how possibly could robotics have a future in financial planning? I actually have a theory on this, and I'll talk about that later. It might be a bit wacky, but we are going to talk about it, particularly when we get to the robo-advice section of the presentation today. So stand by. But essentially, robotics is a process of teaching a computer to move a physical object, a mobile machine, in response to sensory stimulus. So it's responding to visual cues, audio cues, to move a machine. I've seen flying drones dance to music. I've seen a robot on 4 legs open doors, and I've seen a tall sort of humanoid kind of robot stacking shelves in a warehouse. So that stream of artificial intelligence is actually quite real. If you want to see some cool videos, you can look up Google a company called Boston Dynamics. They're doing some really interesting stuff in the robotics space. And stand by for my little bit on robo-advice. Now, I think robotics could play a role there. I've just dived into a whole bunch of kind of technological underpinnings of AI there, pretty dense. But what I wanted to really kind of leave you with is that AI is not one thing; it's actually a universe of things. That's kind of point number 1. Point number 2 is that technology does not equal user adoption, and I still think this is a bit of a gap for most AI applications. There's some really good technology out there, but I think user adoption doesn't require artificial intelligence or artificial intelligence technology. User adoption requires design intelligence. So you have to couple great design and great user experience with the technology to actually get it adopted and into the real into the mainstream. So I've given a bunch of examples on where I thought each of these technologies could be applied in the financial planning landscape. The reality is the applications that are actually in use are few and far between on the ground, and I think largely that's because the problem of how do I combine great design and great user experience on top of my AI technology stack hasn't 100% been solved in financial planning as yet. So we're still waiting for that. But why does AI matter? So why are you here? Why are you on the call today? Why are you engaging with this topic? I think what everyone, and depending on where you sit on the spectrum, you either fear or you're excited about, is the impact that artificial intelligence as a technology suite is going to have on industry. And I use that very broad term very deliberately because everyone talks about this as sort of the next industrial revolution, where you've got computers that can learn by themselves, that don't have to be trained explicitly by a human being. They can take on their own tasks. They can be left to their own devices. It's a very different way of thinking about work, and I think that's the reason why AI matters. It's about in what time period do we think that a machine might actually do our job better than us? And as financial planners and people from the financial planning industry, we think about this. We think, is my job going to be replaced? How do I augment my practice with AI? To what extent is my job and my livelihood going to be impacted by this technology? What opportunities are out there with this technology? And I think this graphic's really interesting because it sort of plots the potential timescale for AI adoption in various industries and various roles from the year 2016 and plots them on a timescale with sort of a probability. So the little round circle there is the kind of the median probability for each industry. So folding laundry, we think it'll be a very short-term adoption rate. Truck driver, we're already seeing self-driving cars, so truck drivers may be impacted by this more than most. Retail salespeople the same. But you get down to stuff more specialized, expert roles like surgeons and maths researchers, and you see the fact that the potential for AI taking over expert roles that require a deep understanding of a very specific client scenario, that require the ability to map that scenario to a way forward, to empathize with the client. All those kind of very, very specific human skills sort of get automated a whole lot later. And I think that's about right. My view on this is that more than half of the value of a financial planner is not in the technical advice that's being given. I think everyone agrees that you can probably come up with algorithms that automate strategy formulation, that take data and make it into a plan of some description. But I think it's really hard to code for empathy, and I think that's been probably missing from the debate around AI in financial planning to date, is that it focuses very much on the technical aspects of financial planning, but actually loses some of the perspective on the relationship aspects of financial planning. And in my view, more than half of the value of financial planning is delivered in you guys sitting across the table from your client, making them feel safe, making them feel secure, and that is a very human thing. It's not. It's hard to code for. So, I think industry generally, there is going to be lots of impacts of artificial intelligence on aspects of work, and probably still aspects of your work. But financial planning generally is an expert role. It requires empathy, and it requires empathy for a very specific client scenario. And I think that's actually a set of problems that AI isn't particularly well equipped to solve, at least as yet. So, but this graphic shows you why people are paying attention to artificial intelligence. It will have a massive impact on the way we live our lives generally. So that leaves me to talk about robo-advice, and I want to lead by saying that I am politely anti-robo. I am of the view that robo-advice is not mainstream, doesn't look like becoming mainstream, and won't for a while yet. And I think the reason why I think that's true is because I've just highlighted one, it's really hard to code for empathy, and so far consumers have shown very little kind of appetite. In fact, I believe they've shown some apathy for engaging with digital robo-advice platforms. I'm going to take you through some data that really highlights that in a second. Also, so I'm going to caveat that with one thing, and I mentioned robotics at the start in that sort of tree graph that I showed, and I thought that maybe that was the one caveat to my theory, was that actually robotics might have a role to play here. So that's probably my one get out of jail free card, is that, you know, would you take advice from this woman here who's shown in this streetscape? Yes or no, not sure. Don't know if we can do live polls on this thing, but
not.
Probably can't. But I'd love to know what everyone was saying. And I think if you don't know who this person is, this is actually a robot called Sophia, who I did a really bad job of photoshopping some hair onto and into a streetscape. But what I wanted to highlight here is that maybe the one way that robo-advice could be given is if I have so if you haven't Googled Sophia, please do. Please look at some videos of Sophia in action. She is a pretty amazing piece of technology. So essentially, this is a robot with a processor and algorithms which are absolutely artificial intelligence based. And if you look at the videos of Sophia, she actually has the ability to empathize or seem to empathize. So her facial expressions actually, obviously they're algorithmic, but they do follow a pretty human-like pattern. She's very much a humanoid. And this is my one caveat for my robo-advice thing, where I think that maybe people won't engage with a digital software platform and get some automated advice through there, but might they engage with someone or something like Sophia, who looks, talks, acts like a human, is a robot, gives great advice? Not sure. I would suggest that maybe that's more likely to occur, and I'd be interested to see someone try to test that out. It hasn't been done yet, of course, but that would be my one opportunity where I think maybe AI could impact financial planning in a more across the table from the client kind of a way, as opposed to the back office. So Google Sophia, watch this space. So these are some examples of some robo-advisors. So some of the really, probably a couple of the more famous ones here being Betterment, LearnVest. Another one is Wealthfront in the US. If you've come across StockSpot here, these are automated investment advisors, automated financial advisors, robo-advisors, whatever you want to call them. And they were very, very, very hot for a while there. A real proliferation of them, largely country-based. So you had Nutmeg in the UK, you had Betterment and Wealthfront in the US, you had StockSpot in Australia, and obviously that's due to regulation. You kind of get this kind of landlocking of robo-advisors. But they were hot, they were flying, lots of capital pouring into them, lots of proliferation of them, fair bit going on. So really kind of topical thing to be talking about robo-advice. This is back around sort of 2015, where the assets under management of robo-advisors was growing really quickly. The number of accounts was growing really quickly. Everything seemed really good. Data can be, so the funny thing about data is it can be positioned in lots of different ways. So if I just look at this slide, I would think, oh my God, robo-advice is coming. It's going to take over all our jobs. This is going to be the way of the future. So any slide that goes up and to the right is impressive. But if I overlay a slightly different timescale, so again, we're still looking at some part of 2015 here, but we're looking at it in a slightly different timescale, you'll notice that actually the growth in robo-advice is fairly flat. It's actually not growing as quickly as everyone would have us believe, as the PR would have us believe. It's actually fairly flat. The one difference being Vanguard, but if you know the story of Vanguard, Vanguard obviously provide a suite of low-cost investment products, and all Vanguard did in the growth of their robo-advisor product was to switch a bunch of their existing clients across into robo-advice portfolios and call that growth. So different, really different to actual growth in robo-advice. And if we just keep kind of fast forwarding forward, I think there's the real problem here is consumer apathy. I asked this question, two questions. I asked these two questions at the Financial Services Council Summit a couple of weeks ago. This is a room full of financial services professionals who do nothing else but think about financial services and the future of the industry and all that sort of stuff. So you think this would be a very motivated room. I asked the first question, would you use a robo-advice service? 80% of the hands went up. Absolutely, I would use a robo-advice service. Seems like a great idea. I then asked a second question, do you currently use a robo-advice service? Again, it flips around, right? 81% of the hands stay down, only 19% of the hands go up. And this is a room full of incredibly motivated people who would be absolute early adopters of a robo-advice service. And I think this speaks to the challenge for robo-advisors generally, is that there is a high level of consumer apathy out there. I'm not yet convinced that advice doesn't have to be sold or the benefits shown to a client. I'm not yet convinced that that expert advisor and client relationship isn't best performed by a human, and that empathy and trust isn't best delivered by a human. And all the data, I think, kind of backs that up. And what this kind of boils down to, so if you have a high level of consumer apathy, it's generally harder to sell something, to get people to buy something. So your cost of customer acquisition is really high. And I'm going to talk about unit economics here. And unit economics is a really important concept to understand, not just in the robo-advice context, but also just in your businesses. I suspect the financial planning industry hasn't thought about their businesses in terms of unit economics for a while, if ever. And with the way the industry is moving, I think we're going to have to come to grips with this really quickly. Unit economics can be boiled down to one kind of comparison or ratio. To keep it simple, there are obviously there's much more sophisticated measures of unit economics, but just to keep it simple, this is a really good place to start. So cost of customer acquisition versus customer lifetime value. What did it cost me to acquire my customer? How much value in terms of profit over time did I recoup from that customer over that time? And these are the unit economic numbers for robo-advisors on average in US dollars. And you can see the cost of customer acquisition is not covered by the customer lifetime value. So every time a robo-advisor acquires a customer, they are actually losing money. And that, I'm about to show you another slide in a second that shows the impact of that over time. But this, I believe, is the symptom of a larger challenge for robo-advisors, which is one, there's a high level of consumer apathy. And I'm not yet convinced that the product actually solves that consumer need for empathy and for trust. And worth thinking about these sorts of numbers in your own business, just as an aside. If you haven't done these numbers for your own business, worth going away and doing and then seeing what your unit economics look like, because it really does highlight some interesting things. So I think this is a challenge with robo-advice, and what that's resulted in over time is, and it's a little bit hard to read what this slide's saying, but essentially all the companies here with the yellow sort of yellow people icon, they've gone B2B, so they've gone from a business to consumer robo-advice offering to actually being selling their service to businesses to use with their existing clients. Hedgeable is gone; they've been wound up. And all the other ones there have been acquired by larger entities, essentially for their client base or for their technology. And the reason I think that this trend is there is because the fundamental economics of robo-advice largely don't work and don't work at any scale. And I think that's why these businesses have gone that way. Been really interesting to see the announcement by some of the big financial planning organisations in Australia announcing their digital sort of robo strategies. I'll just be really interested to see what the unit economics stack up like once those programs roll out. Strikes me that if a small, nimble, cost-effective startup can't get the economics of robo-advice to make sense, I'd be really interested to see how a large organisation with lots of kind of legacy technology much larger cost base does so, and whether unit economics get worse or better. I think it'll be a challenge personally, because it doesn't just start at customer acquisition. Of course, those organizations have got plenty of customers, but you've got to engage those customers. You've got to get them to use your product, and I think it's going to cost money. So I'll be really interested to see how that works. But bottom line, thesis around robo-advice is that I don't believe it's going to be mainstream anytime soon. I don't believe these platforms have yet found a way to make the unit economics work. I think that's because there's a level of consumer apathy there that needs to be solved by empathy and trust from another human being. And the only caveat I can think that might change that dynamic is if we create in a wacky version of the future, a humanoid robot like Sophia, who actually does replicate the empathy and trust that we receive and give to other human beings. So that's my theory around robo-advice and how it might impact your business. The answer is I don't believe much. I think if you're interested in integrating robo-advice into your offering in any way, shape or form through a digital offering, please do the math on the unit economics. Please come and see me if you want help understanding how you might do that, because it's really important that you understand the unit economics and how that's going to translate to your business before you take those platforms on and try to understand them, because yeah, you don't want to take on the poor unit economics of another platform, for sure. Cool. So I wanted to quickly delve into the practical implications of artificial intelligence in your business. So we're kind of moving away from now. We've got a bit of an understanding of the technology. We have gone through and looked at how people thought artificial intelligence might play out in advice businesses, which is kind of robo-advice, and how that might be adopted. And now I wanted to get really deep into the practical and dive into how I think you can actually think about automating certain tasks in your business using artificial intelligence, and what you should keep an eye on for opportunities over time. Cool. So the way I frame this up for advice businesses is dividing your practice between repetitive and relationship tasks. And essentially here, the theory is that a repetitive task is a good candidate for automation. The more standardized that repetitive task is, the easier it is to automate, or the stronger the chance to automate it there is. Relationship tasks, just because of the difficulty in coding for empathy, delivering trust digitally, I think relationship tasks are less strong candidates for automation. So I wanted to break up the tasks along those lines. This is by no means an exhaustive list of the stuff that goes on in an advice business on a day-to-day basis. It's just by way of example and to give you a framework for how you might start to think about identifying opportunities for artificial intelligence to come into your world. And as you might see some people start to come to talk to you about their AI solution, you've got a framework for sort of evaluating how likely those products are to be successful within your business. So repetitive functions include things like document creation, document checking, fee reconciliation, portfolio administration, client notifications, signatures, account opening and closing, and file notes. Relationship functions include things like financial situation. I'm calling it psych profiling. What I actually mean by that is understanding your client in terms of their emotional world, not just their kind of on paper assets and liabilities situation. CRM and relationship building in the meetings that you go to. So that's kind of how I've divided up these functions. Key point here, remembering that repetitive functions, they are the top candidates for automation and artificial intelligence. The simpler they are, the better. The reason I say that is an artificial intelligence application, and this is a good nugget for evaluating potential technology to put into your business. Artificial intelligence works better if the data that you train the models with is similar and in high volume. So the more similar and the more high volume, the easier it is for an AI system to start to take over that task. So for example, if every day at 10 a.m. I come in and I hit Control-Alt-Delete on my keyboard at work to start my computer, whatever that is, and I do it at the same time at 10 a.m. every day for a year, and I provide that sample to a AI application for the purposes of teaching it to do that task for me, that's highly likely to happen. If I completely randomly, sometimes I'll turn the computer on by pushing the power button, sometimes I'll turn the computer on by doing Control-Alt-Delete, sometimes I'll clap my hands to turn the computer on, and it's completely a random sample. An artificial intelligence application is going to find that task much harder to take over, and it's going to get it wrong more often. And that's been the real challenge with AI applications out there in the wild, is not just getting the technology out there. The technology is good, but how do you handle error? How do you handle poor data? How do you handle all those things? You know, there's lots of projects I can think of whereby they've sounded great in theory. They've actually ingested the data and worked out that actually the data was more variable than they thought, and ultimately the product wasn't as successful as it should have been because the data was more variable, and they didn't have a really clear design that handled for error coming back from the machine and gave users a clear path out of that error. I think that's a really important piece. So I plotted these functions on a bit of a graph. So just thinking about how you might practically, where might I look to start to introduce automation via artificial intelligence or otherwise. So I've talked about, you know, I hear from lots of financial planners that account administration, file notes, understanding my client are really you know, time-consuming areas in my business that I'd like to automate. So I've got them in the high-impact category. They are hard. So the reason why I say they're hard, file notes, while it sounds very simple to convert speech to text, when you say it like that, it sounds simple as. The reality is, again, we need to handle that error. So if my file note gets recorded incorrectly, what impact is that to my business from a compliance perspective or from a process perspective? If that impact is a challenge for me, then I need to have a way of handling that error. And generally, that handling of the error means introducing a human back into the loop, and that means it's less easy to automate those tasks, which is why I've got those three up in the high impact, low ease column. Just heading down the page, down to portfolio admin, CRM, client communication, and client relationships. This is highlighting that fact that I actually think those empathy, trust, person-to-person tasks are going to be the last thing to be automated. It's incredibly hard to code for and to write programs to replace these things. So I would suggest that those are in the low impact, low ease column, and probably the things that you might, if you look to prioritize some things to investigate, might be the things you investigate last. Moving over to high ease. So let's just go high ease, low impact. So signatures and fee reconciliation. Digital signatures exist today. We use DocuSign in our business. There's a bunch of other providers out there. Adobe do some good stuff with digital signatures. That's a really easy one for you to introduce into your business so that you're getting your documents signed from clients really simply. Fee reconciliation is probably less for your financial planners out there and more for your super fund trustees in particular who are thinking about this at the moment. Again, it doesn't require AI probably to reconcile fees. It just requires a really good piece of software to do so. I think relatively simple. Moving up to our high impact and high ease part here. So when I say high ease, it's actually really hard to check a document via things like natural language processing and that kind of machine learning way about going about document checking. The reason why it's hard is because documents vary. Everyone writes their documents differently. Everyone does different formatting. Everyone has different language that they use. So actually teaching a program to recognize when a document is wrong is very, very difficult in this space. Where I think there's an opportunity is in digital documents. So rather than exporting the document out to Word and then having natural language processing actually read a Word file, I think if you actually use digital documents, document data, that's actually kind of within a system. It's not in a Word file somewhere. It's actually within a system. It doesn't have to be read. The computer already knows it exists, and then doing some smart things around algorithms around that to check for various things, red flag various things in the process of document creation. I think going about things like that, you can automate not just your document creation, but also a lot of your checking work as well. Little plug for Nod. That's what we do. So we use data to drive document creation, to automate document creation, but also to report on the document data in real time for the purposes of compliance. So we're not just helping with reducing the cost and time of SOA, ROA, other document kind of generation. We're also reducing the time and cost and increasing the accuracy of compliance checking, which I think is obviously a big topic for people at the moment working in the industry. And then the last piece is around the understanding of the financial situation. So this is your client fact find. Again, you could think about really automated ways to do this using AI, like for example, having the mobile phone in your client meeting, transcribing that client meeting speech into text, taking the text and finding all the important parts for the client fact find, like assets, liabilities, income, all that good stuff. Again, I think there's probably a spectrum in ways you can go about it. I think using AI for that is still relatively difficult because recognizing all of the individual important entities, like how many assets does this person have, how much liability does this person have, is actually really hard for an AI to get right at least at this point in time consistently. And you'll find you will need to have humans in the loop checking the output, making sure it's accurate, going back to the client, checking in, making sure it works. But there are probably more software-driven ways rather than AI-driven ways to simplify a lot of that process, and there's some of that stuff starting to pop up now. So still an area to focus on in terms of automation, and one to keep an eye on in terms of AI automation as well. And I think that automated fact find from a digital recording into text into a form, I think is doable. Whether it's doable yet, not sure, but I think it will arrive at some point in time. Finally, I wanted to talk about just some practical next steps that you can all sort of take away and get on with. The first one is to do an audit, I suppose, of your the tasks that you're performing in your business. Divide them into repetitive and relationship functions, and spend most of your time on your repetitive functions. So number 2, spend the most time on the high impact, low hanging fruit, if you like. If something comes along and you don't evaluate it to be a 10x, or 10 times impact in terms of the task that it's there to perform. So a piece of technology comes along and you think it's going to have a 10% impact as opposed to a 10 times impact, probably not worth evaluating the 10% impact any further. It's the amount of change you'll have to go through, the amount of kind of retraining of people that you have to go through. It's just not worth it for an incremental step like a 10% improvement on something. If something's going to have a 10 times impact the way something gets done, either in the efficiency or the client experience or your turnaround times, then it's worth looking at. Then it's worth spending some time on. Number 3, read widely and follow some experts. There's a guy called Michael Kitces in the States. I don't know if you've all come across him. I tend to follow him a little bit. He's pretty on the pulse in terms of what's around in financial planning in the States, Robo-advice, all those sorts of things. But there are a number of experts in Australia and around the world who are commenting on this topic. LinkedIn is a great place to follow these sorts of people and just keep abreast of what's coming in the industry and spend some time really asking, are there pieces of technology that I've heard about this week or this month, which I think I can either integrate into my business easily or I think might impact my business long term, and evaluate those things. And then number 4 is just to repeat this exercise on an annual basis. So go through in your annual business planning, if you're taking your team off site or you're taking your team into a strategy workshop or whatever that is, repeat this exercise annually. So you go through and you say, okay, what are we doing on repeat that we could automate? What out of those things, what is a low-hanging fruit that we can attack immediately? How might we attack it? Let's spin up a project. What's the industry saying? And just continually repeat that process. And I think if you're doing that, your business is always going to be getting better. And I'm going to go back to this topic, unit economics are going to continue to improve. And so I think this is a really practical set of steps that everyone can kind of take away and build into their schedule, their annual schedule, and build into their business. So I think that's it. But I'm more than happy to take questions, and I'm more than happy to kind of revisit any of the topics that we've talked to today. It's been really good to talk to everyone about artificial intelligence and how I think it's actually going to impact your businesses. So if you do have questions, please fire away.
Yeah, and you can ask any questions for Joel in the taskbar to your right. There's a little question panel. Please do so, and we'll get through as many as we can. Love that presentation, Joel. Listeners, I hope you now have a better understanding of artificial intelligence and perhaps have some inspiration as to how you can start applying it in your business. Basically, so advisors shouldn't be afraid of robos just yet. And the other impact of artificial intelligence is in the near future is just going to help make those basic admin tasks more efficient.
Yeah,
so I don't think many listeners will be too upset about not having to do them.
No, exactly. Anymore. Yeah, no, I think there's really clear places that in the short term AI will impact, and there's places that in the short term it won't. So I think we can afford to be practical about this stuff. Yeah.
Obviously at Nod, you guys are using artificial intelligence, and the thing would be a bit remiss not to ask you if you could maybe, and they briefly explain Nod, but maybe go into a bit more detail about what Nod does and how it uses artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so we, thank you for the opportunity to do that. So Nod is a data-driven document generation platform. We use associations between fact find or client data and document content to minimize and in most cases remove the manual editing of documents that take so much time, necessary time. And the important part of our platform is that it gets better over time. So the system is always learning from the edits that you might be making to your documents. It's saving those edits back to your content library. It means that your document generation experience gets better and more comprehensive every time you use the product. And that's a real feature of systems that learn, is that your experience gets better. And I think we've thought a lot about and developed a lot around what's the correct design for a product like this. How do we give people comfort, given it's so automated? How do we give people comfort that the output is correct? So we've done a lot of thinking about that, and particularly recently around that, and we've been really happy with the results. So that design intelligence piece that I talked to at the top, I think we've spent a lot of time thinking about that, not just the underpinning technology.
Yeah, you got a question here. For those interested in Nod, can they upload their current SOA template?
Absolutely. So we only work with your content. Well, that's actually not 100% true. So we have historically only worked with your content. So the answer to the question is yes, absolutely. So you upload your current SOA content to Nod, and then it gets automated from there. And then the second piece is around, we do have some providers that we work with. If you're starting your own business and you don't have any content yet, we do work with some partners around actually starting with a new content set as well. So short answer to the question though is yes, we work with your content.
Awesome. Really great product. Recommend you check it out. I have a question. Obviously, from your presentation, it doesn't sound like the role of the advisor is on the threat anytime soon.
Yeah.
Is there perhaps any other roles or tasks you see could perhaps be impacted by IA. I know, for example, there's been a lot of chats that the role of the receptionist might be dead within 5-10 years and replaced by perhaps a sign-in system where you can alert people that you're here, order your coffee there, tell you where to go, and so forth.
Yeah, I think generally where, again, so AI works best in use cases where the task is repetitive and simple. So if someone's doing the same task on repeat and it's relatively simple, then that's a really good use case for AI. So signing people in is a very good example. You know, offering people a coffee when they come in is a really good example. If that's the sort of thing that we need to do every time someone comes in, and that's the sort of thing that we could automate via an interface. Whether that's a nice experience, I think, is another question. So again, hard to empathize with an iPad in the lobby. Really easy and nice to see someone smiling at you when you arrive. So I think the short answer is yes, you can automate that. Longer answer is do you want to, and can you differentiate on a really personalized experience where you see a smiling human being when you walk through the door? Probably another question for people to answer in their own businesses. Or maybe you need to buy a robot like Sophia to greet people. Maybe that's the happy medium.
Could be. I have a question here asking, what role do you think virtual reality and augmented reality could have on robo-advice or just financial advice? Yeah, this is a good question. This is kind of goes to my my point around robo-advice and my get out clause, which is if they come up with a humanoid kind of robot that looks, talks, acts, sounds like a human, and a human can empathize and trust on the same level, then maybe robo-advice has more of a chance of success. Also talks to what I mentioned around you know, how computer vision might be used in a webinar to aid kind of mutual understanding when there's that tyranny of distance. And I think that's where I see augmented and virtual reality maybe playing a role is if it can feel like we're sitting in the same room together, genuinely feel like that, then maybe that aids with the ability to generate trust and empathy, which I think is really important in an expert-client relationship. So I think the future of VR and AR is still to be proven. I'd love to see someone try it. I'm not sure if anyone on the call has, but if I can be in a virtual room with a client and it looks like we're sitting next to each other and this system is sending me helpful cues to help get around some of that tyranny of distance stuff and help me empathize with my client better, then maybe we can have just as good a meeting 1,000 kilometers away as we could if we were sitting in the same room. So not sure. I think I'd love to see someone try it, and until someone tries it, I'm not sure that we can really say what kind of impact it's going to have. Yeah, love to see it too. It'd be very exciting. Got a couple of questions here. You mentioned before there's a couple of tools out there that can help transcribe meetings using AI or just any tools. Do you have any suggestions? For
I don't have any suggestions, but this is so. One, I'm more than happy to go out and do some research and provide you, Liam, maybe with a couple of examples that you can send to everyone in the meeting afterwards, potentially. But I'm sure if you do a quick Google of automate file notes, speech to text file notes, any of those sort of really rich search terms, I'm sure we'll come up with one or two.
Yeah, and I think if you're just looking for a transcription tool, you can always use rev.com or I think Dragon is another one.
I've heard, actually, Dragon's one I've heard of a fair bit.
Got a few more questions. Got a couple of questions here back to Nod. Sorry, they're wondering about your integration capabilities.
Sorry, I'm before we go there, I'm just Googling for that question now. So we've got, there's one called Speech Notes. You could have a look at, and there's one called Power Diary that you could have a look at in terms of transcribing speech to text.
Cool. Just our listener say as well that they use a phone app called Temi, which costs 10 cents a minute. So
awesome.
Another
there's
to check out there.
Definitely a few out there. To Nod on integrations. Yeah. So we have an API. So we've actually integrated with Xplan multiple times in their old world where they didn't have Xplan open. So we've done, I think we're up to 11 Xplan sites that we've integrated with We've integrated with Practify. We've integrated with Salesforce. So short answer is yes. Double data entry sucks. We don't want people entering data in their CRM or financial planning tool and having to re-enter that data into Nod. And so we look at integrations as a way to solve that, where the data gets sucked automatically from the CRM or financial planning tool into our system for the purposes of driving document creation and document checking.
Cool. 2 more questions. What excites you most about the future of IA?
What excites me most about the future of AI?
AI, yep.
That's a good question. I think generally it is a good thing if human beings can spend more time on strategic, empathetic, life-affirming kind of tasks and less time doing boring stuff. I think that's a good thing, and I think that's probably the main opportunity of AI, whereby we can have people not doing mundane, repetitive, not intellectually stimulating tasks. We can hand those things off to a machine, and we can retrain ourselves to engage more in really complex problems, to be creative, and to spend more time with people. I think that is a wonderful opportunity that AI provides. Not being naive, I think there'll be some transition around that, and we'll have to retrain a whole bunch of people whose livelihood depends on those repetitive and mundane tasks. And we should be really clear-eyed about the fact that it will impact some people negatively, and there'll be some fear around it. But I think generally the opportunity is a really positive one, and I think I'm most excited about the ability for humans to spend more time being creative and spending more time with people and kind of reconnecting with each other, as opposed to spending their time behind a computer screen doing stuff like writing documents and this sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool. And final question, if people want to learn more about Nods, where can they go and how can they get in contact?
Yeah, cool. So we've actually got I'm announcing this for the first time actually. We've actually got a new website. Previously we were at nod.money, but we are now at noddocs.com, noddocs.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joel, for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Awesome presentation. Listeners, thank you for joining us. Just a reminder that there is 1 CPD point allocated for attending this webinar. And now those will be emailed to you in the next week. Or if you are an FPA member and you submit your FPA number on the registration, we will send those to the FPA. We'll be using a new portal for the first time, so bear with us if there's any teething problems there. And in that email that you'll all receive, there will also be a recording of this webinar and some slides. Coming up, if you enjoyed this webinar, you might also enjoy our portfolio construction webinar on building a resilient portfolio for all stages of the economic cycle. That will be with John Owen from MLC Investment Management. And you can also listen to our podcast with Matt Heiner, who chats with industry executives and leaders to unlock new opportunities for advisors. He recorded one last year, which is up there, episode 9, with Joel last year about AI, and today we've recorded a new one, so keep an eye out for that in the next couple of weeks. Thank you again, Joel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again, listeners, and have a great day.